Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Pass the Barstool with me, David, the old boys Phil, and we're here with Arron from Polly's Brew Co. Polly's are probably one of my favourite breweries from the UK, specialise really in hop-forward, juicy IPAs, more modern style. Firstly, before we get going, have you got anything in your glasses, guys?
Actually, I'm drinking one of our new releases for this week. Actually, it's this one, which is the Fields Volume 4. So it's the fourth version of the Fields. It's an oat IPA. Previously, we did introduce lactose into the beer, but this time it's a completely vegan friendly oat IPA.
I've got a Polly's also, probably been in the fridge a little too long actually. 10%, every piece matters.
Every piece matters.
And it's absolutely delicious too.
Sorry, I didn't get the memo. I have no Polly's, unfortunately. I've drank all the beers that I did have from beers.uk. I'm just on a Trillium, 11%, Wild Sinister Kid.
Hey, there could be worse beers to be drinking.
Yeah, school night, but you know, we'll get through. It's all right. First of all, then, appreciate you taking the time to sit with us and talk with us. Tell us a little about yourself, really. Then, what do you do for the brewery? I appreciate in normal circumstances. Well, in this circumstances, you're a bit of a jack of all trades, doing everything about the brewery. What about in normal times?
So day to day, I am the head of sales and new business development. So my role is to sell the beer rather than to actually brew the beer. So I handle all of our customers, I handle our export, I handle a little bit of our retail side, but that's not really my sort of forte. Basically, the brewers just make beer and I get it out of the brewery. That's my job.
I gather his business has been brisk despite the lockdown. It's still kept you busy, I take it, because I've been trying to get your beers in our local offie, and he says he's got to be there on Monday morning when you put them online, and he's got to be there on the button, else he can't get them. And I would say 9 times out of 10 I have a walk down there and he hasn't been able to get them. So I assume they're flying out the door still, regardless.
Yeah, I mean, all things considered, it was a very, very scary first couple of weeks when lockdown was first announced. We had to put our brewers on furlough because on the 17th of March, when this all really started getting a bit scary, we planned on battening down the hatches and had contingency plans in place that we wouldn't be selling beer for up to 12 months. But we recovered pretty quickly, to be fair. I mean, once the brewers were put onto furlough, it was just myself and our owner Sean that were running the day-to-day. So between the two of us, we were doing the brewing, the packaging, sales, warehousing, social media. Everything was just going between the two of us. So it was a pretty busy couple of months while the brewers were off. But we whittled down to practically nothing when lockdown first started. We had a cold store full of beer, which we had to get through. So we very quickly managed to get through all of that and then reignited our brew plans. We were initially brewing roughly once every 10 days to start with. And then it went up to two times a week, and then 2 times every fortnight, and then 2 times a week, then 3 times a week, which facilitated our brewers coming back to work. Mm-hmm. We've just carried on since then. We obviously with the third lockdown, we scaled back our brew plans again. So we're currently doing 2 big brews and 2 half brews per week, just to keep us ticking over. But we're forecasting that by the end of the month and going into April, we should be back up to our pre-COVID brew plans and brewing 5 times a week.
Excellent. We were saying to Sue Hayward in the first episode of these videos, you know, I think all the breweries and establishments or adapt the procedures, and they'll just get it to a fine art, and then everything's back to normal again. You know, it's so frustrating, but it's good to hear you're doing okay anyway.
It's been a bit of a sort of flip and flop type of experience for our brewers, because obviously they're the ones that have had to go on furlough, then come back to work, and then go back on furlough.
Yeah.
But all things considered, we've never been sitting on any beer, which is the most important thing. You know, our sort of MO of beer coming into our cold store and not really being in there for more than 3 weeks at a time. So we can turn over the beer nice and quickly and do the 3 new beers a week setup that we do every single week. It's been easily maintainable, which is a great thing.
Do you actually ship beer directly abroad in the EU, and if so, has Brexit affected that?
Very much so, yeah. So we still do. We sell to 21 countries. There's been varying sort of sales since Brexit happened. I think the very beginning of January was quite a daunting period of time, because I don't think anybody really knew what they were doing. There was all these new protocols that we had to abide by, and we were told to prepare, but we didn't really know how to prepare. We have since sold overseas, and we are still continuing to sell beer overseas, but at the moment it's very wild west. I don't think anybody truly knows 100% what they're doing.
Do you think that'll get back to normal?
I'd like to think so.
Yeah.
I think what a lot of breweries are doing at the moment is they're feeding on scraps that they can pick up from other breweries, and they're just trying to piece together something that makes legible sense to be able to
I think it's not just the brewing industry. A lot of people have got caught out. One of the big things was that the fishermen wanted to leave the EU because, you know, we'll get our waters back and this and that. And now they're moaning because we can't sell mussels and cockles and whatever to Europe, and they're throwing them away. But I mean, they've known for 2 years. They should have thought about this, you know.
Exactly. But at least the fish are happy. That's the most important thing.
Well, I think that last question might kind of flow nicely into one of my questions. It's sort of ancient history now, and I think it may have been May 2019. Potentially, I think it was when you first started to export to Europe, and the name change happened. You guys got hit with we need to change. I mean, the name beforehand, Loca Poly, was a great name. It was very catchy for you guys. And you were told, no, you've got to change it. And I think it may have been from when you first started to distribute to Europe. I don't know if that's correct or not, but how did you guys feel about that name change? Did it set you back at all? I mean, was it a bit gutting for you as well?
It was a bit of a kick in the balls. I won't lie. You know, Loca Poly was such a unique name. We never thought that we'd divert away from that name. You know, it was so obscure because it came from such an obscure part of our story that we very naively didn't think to check the European Trade Register before we started exporting. But yeah, it took 6 months, I think it was, for this big company in Sweden, Spendrups, to cotton on to us, and I think they nipped us in the bud before we got too big to reasonably challenge it. Because I think if we did challenge it, we probably would have been able to keep the name. But the implications of going to fight it we were less than a year old when it all. Or just over a year old, sorry. We were just over a year old when it happened.
That was probably a saving grace, actually. I mean, was it an expensive exercise? Did it cost you a lot of money?
Not really. I mean, compared to sort of the outgoings that we have now, no, it wasn't a very expensive thing to do. But where we were in May 2019, as a barely 18-month-old brewery, it was a big outlay. We had to pay a designer to redesign our labels. We had to trademark the new name, and also fire through and relabel all this beer that had to be relabeled under our new name. There was a period where there were beers going into our cold store that were labeled as Polly's Brew Co, but we hadn't changed our name yet. So I think it was about maybe 2-3 weeks worth of beer, and when we were brewing four times a week, that was a lot of beer to be clambering over in our cold store to get to people's orders.
I think you might have got away quite lightly with that one. It could have potentially cost you a lot of money, couldn't it?
I could have done with Brewdog not announcing it on the Friday before we were due to announce it. That would have really helped things.
Did they really? What did they say?
Well, we planned it so that our name change would fall in line with a festival that we were doing via Brewdog. So I think this festival was launching on the 1st of May, and we were like, right, this is perfect. Our name change is being announced on the 1st of May. We'll sell you the beer labelled up as Polly's Brew Co, but hold back on announcing who we are until we've announced it ourselves. But the memo didn't get passed on to some poor guy in IT, and I rang up very angry on a Monday morning. And yeah, it's fine though. We were sort of lamped with lots of people sending us the screenshot of our new name on the trademark register, so people kind of knew beforehand. But what can you do? Nothing's kept a secret long in the beer industry.
So yeah, for me, you guys really came into your own when you launched the Augment range. BeerHeadZ, I know especially, we really championed that range. We bought a lot of it, we sold a lot of it, all the staff loved it. How critical was that launch and that particular range for your development as a brewery, and how has it changed what you do now?
At the time that the Augment range came about, we were running our what was then known as our Originals range. So that was the 2 hop showcase with the big Polly's Brew Co local Polly text logo on it. Our owner Sean always wants to advance and improve the brewery, so we somehow managed to get ourselves on the bill at Little Summer Beer Bash in 2018 as a barely 6-month-old brewery. And I could see the cogs whirring in his head whilst we were pouring next to Verdant, Deya, and Left-Handed Giant. I could see that he wanted to make his beers as good as those.
Yeah.
And it was a good 6 months in the planning process before he was happy to sign off on these beers and actually put them into production. And yeah, they were a huge financial risk when we first ones, but thankfully the feedback on them was fantastic, and it's what carries the brewery now. We've found that the Augment range outsold our Originals range by 4-1, so there was no point in us keeping our Originals range anymore.
So which breweries, obviously you know, Polly's have got their own favourites. Which breweries do you admire and possibly take inspiration from?
I absolutely love the Colonel and Burning Sky. I think they're by far the best breweries in the country.
Yeah.
Burning Sky very much underrated for what they do. I've never had a bad beer from them. Mark Tranter is extremely talented at what he does. Likewise, the Colonel, I've never had a bad pint from them either. I think in a broader sense, the brewery is very much influenced by the Vale, Trillium, Treehouse, those American haze craze brewers.
Yeah. Have you ever taken any business trips abroad to explore these places?
Actually, Sean has been to New York and to Boston. I've not managed to get myself out there yet.
I did it myself summer 2018. So yeah, we went to Boston and New York amongst other places. And if you're going to visit the States, Boston is a great place to start. And of course, it's got the mighty Trillium brewery. But
Yeah.
it's so much more than that. You know, there's little breweries sprinkled all over the place. It's just fantastic. And of course, David went to New York. Was it last year, or year before?
Yeah, year before. Just went by myself. Just visited other half and all the fantastic breweries there. I would definitely try and do it again if I can. Not likely now, but yeah, it was fantastic. Yeah,
we were traveling for 22 days and we ended up in Toronto, and we were drinking every single day. Brilliant. Loved every single minute of it.
I flew into San Francisco just after I finished university. I had a load of money that I'd saved up, and I was never really sort of interested in Southeast Asia or Australia or anywhere like that. And I flew out to San Francisco on a one-way ticket and traveled my way across the country and finished in New York. I went up to Boston, but then came back down to New York, and then flew home on a one-way ticket from New York. It was that was an experience.
So if Polly's could do any kind of collaboration then with a UK brewery and indeed a worldwide brewery, what beers would you brew and who would you brew with?
This question came up on my Twitter feed quite recently. Actually, I do a thing on my Twitter feed every Saturday where I just ask people what are they drinking, and I relate it somehow into a question that I want to know from people. And it was a collaboration brew question, and somebody actually turned it on me and said, "Who would you collaborate with?" And I thought, that's a great question. I think in the UK we've always subscribed to the idea that if we did a collaboration brew, it would be with a brewery, that we would learn something from. Because don't get me wrong, I love a collaboration day. It's essentially just a big piss up, but at the same time, you do learn things on these collab days. So we were given the option by our biggest distributor in the country at the beginning of 2020. God, that feels like a long time ago now. That there was a bar in Peterborough called the Stoneworks that wanted to do a tap takeover with us, but they had so many lines that we couldn't reasonably fill all of their lines. So they said, name a brewery in the UK that you want to do a collab with, and we'll organise it. So they do half, you do half, and then the middle one takes up the collab brew. And first one that came to my head was Wylam. I'd love to brew with Wylam.
Stoneworks at Peter.
Stoneworks.
Yeah, it's Steve's place, isn't it? From Bexar County. Right. He does some weird recipes. If you're listening, Steve, he did a special for the Newark Beer Festival once in cask, and it had about 12 ingredients, including cuttlefish ink or something, and it was just undrinkable. You know, you've lost the plot, man. You've lost the plot. But really, really nice guy. Yeah.
Yeah. I get on with him really well. I've been meaning to get myself out there for too long now. COVID obviously put a dampener on those plans, but hopefully by the summertime.
It's only 20 minutes away on the train from us, so if you do go down there, let us know and we'll meet up, mate, in the flesh. It'd be nice to meet you.
Yeah, for sure.
So you brew with Wylam. What would you brew with them? Hoppy IPA, double IPA, triple IPA, I imagine.
I would go completely left field and brew like an imperial mild or something like that, because I know that Wylam are really good at those traditional styles, and it would just throw people completely off guard. It's what we're doing at the moment with some of our releases, is that we're doing half batches of stuff that we're not really known for, and catching people so off guard. And I'm really digging seeing people's reactions to these styles that we're not really that known for. So
you've answered the UK one. What about worldwide? Who would you collab with?
I'd like to collab. It's impossible, but I'd love to collab with Orval. Our head
Impossible,
brewer,
but yeah.
yeah, our head brewer Lally goes out to Belgium quite a lot, and I'm sure he could tell the story better than I could. But he was on a beer trip, and he went to Orval, and he knocked on their back door, and as far as I understand, he speaks quite fluent French. So he was asking them for yeast samples that he could put in a cleaned out growler that he was going to take home and then brew with. I can never remember if they actually gave him any yeast samples or not. But yeah, I think that would just set his eyes alight if we managed to brew a beer with those guys over at Orval.
I think that could work, mate. Go for it.
Yeah.
Arron, thanks for your time. I'm conscious that we've only got about 3 minutes left before we get cut off, and part of the game is to nominate a Beers UK supplier to take part in the next game. So, who do you nominate?
I saw on the website earlier today that you've got Neon Raptor on there. So I miss Josh and Tom, absolute bunch. So I'd love to see their faces on one of these. So
yeah, local lads done good. We'll give them an email in the next few days, mate.
Excellent.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for that.
No problem.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time. I appreciate we've taken quite a bit of your time up this evening. So yeah, I guess we'll wrap this up now. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time on Pass the Barstool. Cheers.
Hey guys,
Cheers.
thanks a lot, mate. See you later.